Tonight, a monarch rises. King Charles etches his name into history, his proclamation echoing across the Commonwealth. Princes William and Harry set aside their differences as Britain mourns their grandmother. The Queen's coffin to begin the long journey to London, with a date now locked in for the funeral. September 22nd named a national public holiday, setting up a 4-day grand final weekend. And Collingwood sinks the Dockers to set up a prelim in Sydney as the Premiership Cup Tour heads to Uluru.
This is Melbourne's 9 News with Alicia Loxley.
Good evening. From London to our nation's capital, King Charles III has formally been proclaimed. Britain and the Commonwealth welcoming a new king while farewelling a queen. The body of Queen Elizabeth will soon begin the solemn journey to London, where the public along the way will be given the chance to pay their respects. Brett McLeod begins our coverage.
With the simple scratch of a pen inking the royal decree, met by 3 cheers from the guardsmen,
hip hip, hooray!
The blast of trumpets, the thunder of artillery, and the roar of crowds across London, signalling that Charles is officially the king. And in one of those twists of British tradition, flags across the United Kingdom returned to full mast just for the day to salute the new monarch. Tomorrow they return to half-mast to continue honouring Queen Elizabeth's passing. While he's dreaded the loss of his mother, Charles' entire life has been one of preparation for this day. But its formalities began without him.
God save the King!
God save the King!
The Accession Council, including every former living British Prime Minister, gathered in St James's Palace while the official proclamation of the new monarch took place.
The Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
For the first time, the private meeting was made public, televised all over the world, a sign of the modern monarchy. The proclamation documents were first signed by Charles' heir, the new Prince of Wales, and the Queen's consort, before the King was invited into the room to address the council, standing in front of an empty throne.
I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathise with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered.
He vowed to follow his mother's example as he took on the ultimate burden of royal duty.
In carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
Taking the oath to fulfil his obligations, and with a slight moment of tension over a cluttered signing table, it was done. The proclamation read out from the balcony of St James's Palace.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
Before a procession travelled to the heart of the city, to repeat the cry across London.
Hip hip! Hooray!
A new sovereign, but an age-old tradition. Much of the fanfare identical to Queen Elizabeth's proclamation 70 years ago.
By the grace of God, Queen of this realm and of all her other realms and territories, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith.
From Tower Bridge and Hyde Park to Edinburgh Castle, 41 gun salutes across Charles' kingdom.
So this is the moment, returning to the palace. 6 decades after he was proclaimed a prince, Charles is now officially King of the United Kingdom and Australia.
Despite the new weight on his shoulders, the monarch looked very much at home. In London, Brett McLeod, 9 News.
Princes William and Harry have put on a united front, setting aside their feud to appear in public together. The brothers and their wives observing floral tributes and greeting well-wishers outside Windsor Castle. Edward Godfrey has the story.
Two brothers trying to bury a painful hatchet by order of their father, the King. To begin with, they looked uncomfortable in each other's presence, but an invitation from Prince William had the brothers and wives cast aside their falling out to help a country heal.
That's what surprised us all. They were all together.
At the gates of Windsor Castle, Meghan tentatively walked across the gravel driveway. Harry quickly sidestepped the group to be by her side. The Duchess of Sussex seen nervously playing with her hair as the courtier explains what happens next. Harry and Meghan hand in hand, rarely letting go of each other, as they sombrely strode towards the castle gates with the Prince and Princess of Wales. Since choosing to leave England, today was risky for Meghan. As she moved across the crowd, handshake to handshake, a lady in a navy shirt kept her hand on the fence, refusing to even make eye contact, a royal snub in any language. The image of the brothers observing the flowers, bouquets and handwritten notes had an eerie deja vu about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This time, it wasn't their father, but their wives who offered comfort. Meghan with a hand on a clearly upset Harry's back. William and Kate simply steadfast in duty. But Harry and Meghan were unable to escape the cold reality. This is the family they deserted for a life in America. His brother's elevation as the next king, coming with Kate's new painfully familiar title. It's a title that weighs heavy with history. Unveiling a statue of their mother, Princess Diana, last year was one of the last times the brothers appeared in public together. Their relationship was special, an unbreakable brotherly bond forged out of the responsibility of birth and a very public grief. Best men at each other's weddings, the split began when Meghan tried to do the royal life her way.
As brothers, you know, you have good days, you have bad days.
There were times where the couples all but ignored each other, culminating in Harry and Meghan handing in their status as senior royals for a $20 million compound in Santa Barbara, California, and Netflix and Spotify deals.
I had 3 conversations with my grandmother and 2 conversations with my father before he stopped taking my calls.
The trashing of the relationship coming to an unedifying end in an interview with Oprah, with claims of racism and bullying at Buckingham Palace.
Concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
Is the royal family a racist family, sir?
No, we're very much not a racist family.
Prince Philip's funeral saw the brothers briefly reunited. Meghan Markle did not attend. But it was the death of their grandmother that brought the warring brothers and their wives together. Since the Queen passed, thousands and thousands of people have been coming to Windsor to pay their respects to the Queen. But few would have imagined they'd have the chance to do that face-to-face with members of the royal family, including the future King.
Kate was fortunate enough also to shake her hand, and she was welling up a little bit.
Prince Harry asked what my name was.
Okay.
And we said, I'm sorry for your loss.
Throughout the sad 40-minute shuffle around Windsor Castle, there was just a slight glimpse of civility returning to the House of Windsor. A hope this family rift might just be mended by the love from a people mourning their monarch. In London, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
We'll go live now to our Euro correspondent Brett McLeod, who's at Westminster. Brett, details have been firmed up for the Queen's funeral.
Alicia, at the place where the Queen married Philip in 1947, the world will watch on as she's farewell. The state funeral next Monday, the 19th of September, here at Westminster Abbey. Now, the details are that she will lie in state at Westminster Hall across the road from Wednesday. The public here will have the opportunity to pay their respects. You can imagine the size of the crowds that will be here for that. Her coffin will then be moved on the morning of her funeral to Westminster Abbey for that service. It gets underway at 11 a.m. local time. That's 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. It will go for just over an hour. There'll be 2,000 specially invited guests to watch that service. And then the King will lead other senior members of the royal family back to Windsor to St George's Chapel for the final service before the Queen is laid to rest in the Royal Vault. It will be televised, and of course we'll have all the pictures here live on Channel 9. And then the world's eyes will turn back to Westminster Abbey in the months, perhaps next year, before we see the final moment in all this, the coronation of King Charles III. Alicia.
OK, Brett McLeod there at Westminster, thank you. Well, at Balmoral, the Queen's children have also paid their respects and greeted mourners. As Europe correspondent Carrie-Anne Greenbank tells us, her body will soon begin the final journey to London.
In Scotland, the rest of the family paused for a touching few moments outside the gates of Balmoral Castle to view the flowers, to say thank you and shed a few tears. This was the Queen's home away from home, and she felt quite comfortable in Tartan. Her love of time spent at her favourite residence, Balmoral Castle, or roaming her Highland retreat. All those links reaffirmed in the wake of her death, which occurred inside the castle, where till now her body has remained. Leading the family to the tributes and the Princess Royal and youngest son Prince Edward. As well as Anne's husband Timothy, Edward's wife Sophie, and some of the Queen's grandchildren, taking the time to read the cards attached to the posies and floral wreaths. And for Prince Andrew, a rare public appearance, he gave his own little gesture of thanks.
Andrew came by and I asked him how things were, basically, to be honest. And he said, well, they've given us one day, which I took to be today as being a family day and that kind of thing. And then he said, obviously, then it will change tomorrow when the Queen's body is moved from here.
For Anne's daughter, Zara Tyndall, it was a moment of great tenderness. The granddaughter who quietly gave the Queen great comfort for many years. The locals around Balmoral have long taken the royals in their stride. Seeing them go to church or drop in to do a little shopping, the warmth today was evident and strong.
It was quite emotional, actually. You could really feel that they were grieving. That must have been incredibly hard for them. I don't know how they managed to do that, really. I know it's their job, but at the same time, they're still human. You know, it must have been incredibly difficult.
The prince asked me about, because of my T-shirt from Brazil, well, you came from Brazil? Oh, I'm living here in Aberdeenshire, but I just came here to let some flowers to the Queen, and it was an unexpected moment for us. We got nervous.
From Balmoral, the Queen's body, before ultimately moving to London, will tonight make the 6-hour journey by road, 280 kilometres, to Edinburgh. The Scottish capital only too ready for the moment.
It's unbelievable. I mean, she just obviously loves Scotland, and Balmoral was her place. So for it to come here, for it to lie in state, is just, there's no words.
I think it's good that people can pay respect all that she's done.
If you'd never seen any royalty, you can now probably say I've seen royalty because you've seen the coffin.
The journey of the Queen's coffin down the Royal Mile here in Edinburgh is one steeped in tradition. This iconic strip has been the processional route for kings and queens for the past 500 years. As the preparations for the Queen's funeral gather pace, to be watched by Britain, the Commonwealth and millions around the world, it is also a family saying farewell. In Edinburgh, Carrie-Anne Greenbank, 9 News.
And let's go to Carrie-Anne Greenbank, who is in Scotland tonight. Carrie, the Queen's coffin will begin that journey to Edinburgh in less than an hour.
Well, Alicia, it will. For the Queen's coffin, it will be a 6-hour journey from Balmoral Castle to here. It will be passing through Aberdeen on the way to allow as many people as possible in the northeast of Scotland to be able to catch a glimpse of the coffin as it passes by. Now, here in Edinburgh, preparations are almost complete. Overnight, we saw members of the military practising all the finer details of the procession that will be happening right here along the Royal Mile. Roads have been closed already across much of the city, and there's a really strong police presence here as well. When the Queen's coffin does arrive, it will be placed in the throne room of the Palace of Holyrood House, and from there it will await the arrival of King Charles and Camilla. Alicia?
OK, Kari, thank you. We're returning home now, and leaders, dignitaries and mourners are gathering to celebrate the life of Queen Elizabeth at a church service in the city. And Adam Hegarty is at St Paul's Cathedral. Adam, who has arrived so far?
Well, Alicia, the Premier's in attendance here this evening, so he arrived a short time ago, as did the Governor. She'll be giving a reading as part of the service tonight, and the memo's also gone out to all Victorian MPs who want to be attendant. So, look, in some way, at least in a Victorian sense, it does feel like tonight is the first real official commemoration, celebration in Victoria for Queen Elizabeth II's life. At the end of the service tonight, the Australian anthem will be played, followed shortly after by what else but God Save the King. But as we've seen again, yet again today, as we've seen repeatedly over the past couple of days, people are paying their respects in their own way. Like breath through a bagpipe, tradition flows through Alastair Wright's veins. 12 noon sharp, his flags returned to full mast, the moment of proclamation.
God bless King Charles III.
You see, the 79-year-old's a bit of a monarchist. His backroom pub, a bit of a giveaway. The Queen's Arms, since 1978, opened by an MP, an ode to the royals.
Shed a tear, as a lot of people have. But then it's fantastic we have a new king.
And as the flowers laid outside the North Dandenong home show, Victorians care deeply.
No matter what you think of the monarchy, you know, Elizabeth II was an amazing lady.
A thought echoed in droves, lines of people and flowers outside Government House, whether it be messages, even drawings, by young and old.
We've actually come from Geelong.
She was really kind to everyone.
The people who I would expect to not speak highly of her are speaking so highly of her with love.
That continues in earnest. Tomorrow, our state proclamation. Then, Thursday, September 22, a public holiday of mourning announced today, clashing with Victorian Parliament sitting, with grand final eve a 4-day weekend.
Just make a nice long weekend during school holidays.
So much change, but not at the Queen's Arms.
Most pubs never change their names. I think it's bad luck.
Adam Hegarty, 9 News.
It's a sight not seen in the capital for 70 years, a 21-gun salute to mark the declaration of a new monarch. In order to legitimise his reign, King Charles III must be proclaimed head of state in all realms of the Commonwealth. Here's our political editor, Chris Ullman.
Beneath a brilliant blue sky, the Federation Guard stepped out its formation on the forecourt of Parliament House. The smoke from an older tradition prepared the ground and the Prime Minister was saluted.
Present arms!
As the official party and the people awaited the arrival of the Governor-General to mark a moment not seen in this capital since 1952. It's a place the Queen knew well. She opened it in 1988. 61 years before that, her father dedicated the first Parliament. But unlike the warm February day 70 years ago on the steps of the Old House where Queen Elizabeth's rule was proclaimed, this time the heritage of Australia's first peoples was acknowledged.
I'd like to pay my respects to my elders past, present and emerging.
Before the Governor-General announced a new sovereign.
Do now proclaim Prince Charles Philip Arthur George to be King Charles III, by grace of God, King of Australia and his realms and territories.
As God Save the King was heard in Canberra for the first time in more than 70 years, the flags were raised to full mast, where they will fly until dusk. A sacred dance marked the passing of an era. The formal ceremony ended with a 21-gun salute. The flags will be lowered to half-mast after sundown and not raised again until the day after the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. Chris Ullman, 9 News.
We've learnt more today about the woman who was beamed around the world planting a kiss on Charles's cheek at his first public appearance as king. While the 73-year-old greeted crowds of well-wishers outside Buckingham Palace, Jenny Asiminius says she was overcome with emotion and took a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
I was too excited and I was so happy to see him stand in the front to me. And he said, share hand, like I say. And I say, and he would look at me, and I would look at him. I say, may I kiss you? And he said, yes.
The royal fan says she will hold on to the moment forever. All right, coming up next for you in Melbourne's 9 News, the day's other top stories, including the moment a fight on King Street nearly ended in tragedy. Claims 000 call taker Esther is rushing new recruits into service. And a teal wave rolls up the bay, raising money to battle brain cancer.
9 News, brought to you by KFC. Get free delivery with the Friday Night Footy Feast every Friday, only on the KFC app.
A 41-year-old man is in a serious condition in hospital after he was punched in the head on King Street this morning. Around 8:45, the man was captured kicking a taxi and falling to the ground into the path of an oncoming truck. He was then helped back onto the footpath before he was assaulted.
About 5 minutes later, there's cops, ambulance, the guy's on the back of a stretcher, covered in blood.
Police are now investigating. Victoria's 000 call taker has rubbished complaints that its training standards are slipping. The Communication Workers Union has told state political reporter Mark Santomartino the consequences could be fatal.
Backup has finally arrived, but new recruits have Esther's old guard worried.
The errors are fixed, which is terrific, but it's just putting an extra load on the current staff who are fixing the errors.
The Communication Workers Union, one of 4 representing staff at Victoria's 000 call taker, says input errors are frequent from the first of 400 additional staff onboarded as part of a $333 million overhaul.
The quality is declining.
You can't rush training. You can't just force people through because there's an election coming.
It's an assertion Esther refutes in the strongest possible terms. Only call takers that have satisfied the competency-based assessments are able to operate as an emergency call taker.
This is because Daniel Andrews failed to act. Now we're seeing people rush through. Mistakes will be made, and that could be fatal to people in Victoria.
The extra staff are helping response times. Last month, more than 90% of emergency calls were answered within 5 seconds.
It's been addressed now, which is fantastic.
The government says long-term reforms in 2023 will address Esther's financial sustainability going forward. Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
There was no Sunday sleep-in for 4,500 people who took part in the 10th annual Connors Run, aiming to find a cure for child brain cancer. It commemorates the life of Connor Dawes, a Melbourne teenager who died from the disease in 2013.
It's horrible what happened to him, but that we can do something positive in his name and memory and really make a difference for other families.
Today's event raised more than $1.5 million for research. Brain cancer is the biggest killer of young Australians. Coming up for you, the Premiership Cup centre stage in Australia's Red Centre as it continues its national tour. Plus how a teacher from the Dandenongs convinced Kiss to join his first aid crusade. Five people have died when their boat capsized in waters off New Zealand's South Island. A collision with a whale, the possible cause. 11 people were on board the vessel south of the coastal town of Kaikoura on a bird photography day trip. The mayor says he believes a whale surfacing underneath the vessel caused the tragic accident. 6 people, including the skipper, survived. Kiss has just wrapped up the Australian leg of their End of the Road tour. The Rockers thrilling tens of thousands of fans for the final time. The visit has inspired a look back at their first trip here and a curious TV commercial that's been in the vault for more than 40 years. Tony Jones has the story.
Hi.
Hi. Mamaloo.
I'm Coco the Clown for Rice Bubbles.
Their trademark painted faces certainly look familiar, but this is Kiss as you've never seen them before, or at least you've never heard them before.
A for apple, B is for Jack, C is for Kellogg's, Applejack.
4 rockers at the peak of their stardom dragged backstage from a sound check at the Sydney Showgrounds for what proved to be a real sideshow to their maiden Australian tour.
Remember, get these guys out of here now.
And the man to blame? A 34-year-old school teacher from the Dandenongs, Ron Smith.
Sitting there one night, I saw Kiss come on the screen, and I thought, there's a perfect campaign, a national campaign, the Kiss of Life, headed up by Kiss. And so that's where it started.
On a one-man crusade to educate people on the basics of first aid, Ron had already notched up a win by badgering Telecom executives to print it inside the cover of the phone book. Then he tried his luck with the world's biggest rock band.
Some of the journalists rang me up and said, there's a lot of questions being asked around town about you from people who are on the tour. Who the hell is that bloke?
By the time Kiss had landed, even their publicity agent knew all about Ron Smith and his first aid campaign.
I just kept putting press statements out that I thought this would be a good thing for Kiss to do, and I was looking forward to them helping. And then all these barriers got put in my way. Oh, you'll have to find the TV crew, you'll have to do this, etc.
Sure enough, Ron pulled a few strings here at Channel 9. The rest tells its own story.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. We want you to learn the ABCs of the Kiss of Life.
A for airway, B for breathing, and C for circulation.
They are goofing around and having fun, but as they knew what the message was, and that was their way of portraying it.
As it happened, Ron never ended up meeting Jean, Paul and the team, and he's been happy just to watch their Australian swan song from afar these past few weeks. Happy also for the small difference he made more than 4 decades ago.
I really like to thank them now and just say thank you guys. You did a great job 40 years ago.
Learn the Kiss of Life. We want to make sure that all our fans could save a life in an emergency. For more information, check your telephone book for the ABC. Then we can all rock and roll!
Tony Jones, 9 News.
Amazing story. Well, the AFL Premiership Cup has made its way to one of Australia's most recognisable landmarks, Uluru. The Cup hit the road on Friday from Darwin and has spent 3 days touring the Northern Territory. It heads to Geelong tomorrow. All right. On that note, Clint Stanaway is here with sport.
Hi, Alicia. Thanks so much for that. Coming up, the Pies book their ticket to Sydney, but getting there won't be at all easy for their fans. Here's Joshua Dorr.
Planes, trains and automobiles, Clint. Pies fans are looking at all options to get to the prelim, but the ticket scramble will be fierce and costly. I'll have the details next.
Thanks, Josh. See you soon. Also tonight, the Dockers trudge home as Jackson prepares to declare his hand. And the supercars crash that had rivals brawling.